and that becomes your dialogue. If it's about poor me, they're not even going to be looking at your website and your podcast. They're going to be thinking, oh, poor me. The people are looking at this job seeker journey that you're doing, this podcast, are people that want to learn something so that they can make a difference in the workplace for the rest of their life. I think people go through our program many times, Brad, they are better employees than they've ever been in the past, because we want them to think differently, that I am a learner and I am a contributor, and that comes out of their mouth every time. When you're on an elevator, the elevator in my building to get to the fourth floor takes a matter of 20 seconds or less. I work for a fantastic company. I worked there for 20 years. I learned so many things that makes me valuable to the marketplace. I was able to contribute. I had great success. What do you do and how can I help you? 20 seconds, and somebody's going to talk to you. And so being job loss, there is life after release. When I said at the very beginning, think about it. Hey, I'm on my road to somewhere great.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. When I first came up with the concept of wanting to do this podcast, the first episode with a guest that I knew I wanted to do was on that very first day that you lose your job. Why? Because I remember that day. I remember the inconspicuous email that I got that said, meet us at 9 a.m. I remember sitting in that office with the HR rep and my boss with the packet sitting on the desk. I remember the conversation of what to do now, what the next steps were. I remember walking with my stuff from my desk in front of everybody to the elevator. I remember getting in my car after having just told my wife that I lost my job. That drive home, that weird drive home during the day. I remember the conversation with my wife. But the whole thing that I remember the most is I started thinking, now what? What do I do first? You're kind of in shock. You really don't know what to do. And I knew that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. So today, my guest is Travis Jones. Travis is the CEO of Career Development Partners in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But as he mentions in our interview, he is a part of a larger network that is nationwide. So you don't just have to think of Career Development Partners in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I want to jump right into this conversation because I know it's going to benefit you. And without further ado, this is my conversation with Travis Jones. All right, so I am here with Travis Jones. Hi, Travis. How are you?
I'm great, Brad. Nice to see you.
Yeah, well, and I got a chance to work with you all. Let's see, about I guess it's 5 years ago, when I was going through a transition at the time, and really enjoyed. I mean, I didn't enjoy the situation because of what I was in, but I enjoyed the training and when you reached out to me, I was really excited because I knew you would be a perfect person to start this journey of what I was hoping to accomplish with the podcast and helping people out, since you deal with people right at the beginning of all these journeys. So first thing I wanted to kind of ask you was, what exactly is career transitions and outplacement organizations, and what all is offered when someone uses a service like yours?
Well, that's a really good question. Let me tell you about our company, Career Development Partners. We were started about 35 years ago, and I happened to have the opportunity to buy this company in 2005. I knew nothing about career transition. I knew nothing about what career transition did for people that had lost their jobs. And so I hired a guy to come to work for me that taught me this industry. And I had just sold a company. The day I sold it, the lady that owned this company called me and said, I'm moving to Alabama. Would you be interested in buying my business? And so I've learned this business from that time on, 2005. And what I realize is this is probably one of the most important businesses there is in the marketplace. I love what I do. Our people love what we do. And here's what we do. We help companies that have for whatever reason, has a reduction workforce to take care of those employees when they refer them to us. And they normally pay for this service for us. They say, hey, we want you to take care of our employees and help them to transition to a new career for whatever the reason is. And so people come to us sometimes because of performance. Sometimes they come, they close down a department, like your company closed down those departments. And we were so glad to be able to go in and help your staff, help you to transition. And so when someone comes into our program, we take them through a process of learning how to do job search correct. And over the years, I've found that when I speak at colleges and other places, they say and speak to people that come from colleges, they don't have good career transition assistance for people to help them find a job. And so it really is a skill that is helpful to have someone that does that for a living to help a person transition well. And so when we receive people into the company, we take them through the process of teaching them how to understand, and you'll probably talk about this in your session, some of the emotions that they're going through, what to do next, who to talk to, what to talk about, how to have an exit strategy session. We take them through a series where they learn how to assess what it is that they really love to do, so that when they look for the next career, they have an opportunity to thrive and not just survive. So once they get through that assessment, they really begin to understand what it is that they've contributed that makes them valuable to the marketplace. We teach them how to do that before they even go out and start looking, because if you go out looking right away, what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of those rejection letters in the mail. You're also going to get real discouraged. And so as we get into this, we begin to start teaching them how to create a resume, and how today a resume is a custom piece. It's one that is not just, you know how years ago, Bradley, you may have remembered this, people would make 100 resumes and get the same one out to everybody. Today, if you did that, you're going to get those rejection letters almost every time. It's really understanding what it is that you bring to their table to meet their need. It's all about them, but it's all about you, how you meet that need. And so teach them how to craft something that speaks to that, and not just send them out randomly. People that are unemployed, when they're telling someone, they hand out their resume to them. That's the worst thing they can do. Don't hand your resume out, because it may get in the wrong hands and it may keep you from getting a job. We teach them how to understand how to network and how to teach people what the process they're in. And I'm probably going a little more in detail of what we do than normal, but just teach them how to network, how to talk to people about what their needs are before they give all the resumes out. We teach them about social media and LinkedIn, how important LinkedIn is to help them get that job. And then once they begin to get to that level, then we're going to teach them how to interview and how to negotiate and how to look for the right jobs and do mock interviews with them and all those kind of things. Because today, you're competing against a lot of people for every job that's in the marketplace. So having the training and the skills to get you fully prepared is going to change your whole job search strategy. And if people don't have that, they're going to go out and just fumble through that along the way. And so what our company does is help people to plan that strategy out. It's a lot of work. It's really worthwhile. It's something that's transferable to the rest of their life. They'll learn to do things differently, even in their workplace. And so that's a little bit about our company and what we do.
Sure. And so you mentioned that it's employers that reach out to you and say, hey, we've reduced our workforce, we want to help them. But do you have people who, if maybe their company didn't offer a service like this, do you have people that are able to come to you and say, hey, I'd really like to use your service, even though it wasn't offered by the employer?
We do have lots of people like that. We have people, in my church, anybody that gets unemployed, but they always say, hey, go see Travis. Or if you go to a meeting, and sometimes I'm in these large groups and they'll say, hey, I know somebody got laid off. Would you like to talk to them? If people, we can help those. There are some resources that we offer to help them a little bit. But the best resource is when a company invests in that employee. And the reason why I say it's important for a company to invest in those people is what they're saying is that we really care about you, Brad. We care about you, Travis. We care about you. It didn't work here for one reason or another, but we want to help you to transition to something well. And so most of the business that we receive come through someone that is a company that pays us a fee. And the fee structure is based on the kind of work that needs to be done with each person, executive level one-on-one or, group sessions, different kind of things of that nature. So, but we do get individuals, and I have a tendency to help a lot of individuals that, I just do it. It is because of who I am.
So since we're kind of starting at the very beginning, the day of, let's say, hypothetically, let's say that I found out today. I'll even say it was sudden, but it doesn't even have to be sudden. I know people who know that in 3 months there's going to be a major layoff and they have a feeling it could be them. So they've kind of prepared themselves a little bit. But let's say that I found out suddenly that I'm no longer working at X company. What do you think is the very first thing that I should do? And one of the reasons why I'm asking this is I know a lot of people who just, and probably out of shock a lot of times. I know it was for me. And I've talked to some other friends of mine that are similar, where they just immediately start jumping in to what they think they should do, which is apply. I got to get in front of companies. I got to reach out to all these people immediately. I got to do this, do this, do this. They don't process anything. They just go for it. And then later on, I think all of that hits them all at once. So what would you advise someone to do? What's the first thing that someone should do whenever they have found themselves being let go?
Well, I'm going to say something that if you're talking to a person that got laid off or is getting laid off, ask them to ask for some outplacement assistance. Because companies many times don't even think about that. But if they've ever been through a job loss themselves, they know this is a very difficult time. In fact, the guy that wrote the book Well-Being, he says the most difficult time in a person's life, there's 3 things: death of a loved one, loss of a job, and divorce. And he says that loss of a job has a bigger effect on most people than either one of the other 2. Now, I don't know where he came up with that finding, but I agree with it since that's the business I'm in. Okay. It's really difficult. And so when you first get released, if a company uses our services or uses someone to help them and assist, we give them training on how to let that person go. How do you let someone go with dignity and respect? And in my mind, any decent and good company ought to treat people well. They need to provide some assistance to those employees so that they can help them to transition. We need a good workforce out in America, and I think helping people transition to doing something where they can thrive and where they can be a contributor is really, really important. So providing assistance to them. We put together a packet, and we may talk about that some in your series, but how do you talk to your own family about this? I've had people that are so ashamed that they got released and they go up to a Quick Trip or a grocery store or something and they see someone that they know and they hide from them because they're embarrassed. And it is tough when people lose their job. And so if people understood how difficult that is to go through a job loss, and it is one of the most difficult things in life, they would provide some assistance. When you get assistance, what it does, it has a plan. When you give them a packet and say, here, we're going to provide you some career transition assistance. And even if they don't, there are some services, we'll talk about some of those that you can go to that are free. They'll provide some assistance so you have a step forward. You have a next step. And so people need help. And so I would just say, ask your company to provide some assistance. If they don't, here's what you do. You think there's life after release. And I tell people that all the time. There is hope for you. And even if it's not an outplacement service, it's someone like yourself with this website that you have, the Job Seeker Journey. They need to refer their friends to your podcast here because people need that kind of assistance. And when they refer them to a source that helps them, that again gets them off that cycle, emotional curve cycle. They may be depressed and say, hey, you ought to hear Bradley's. podcast. It helps you and get people to refer people to you and others. There's a place in Tulsa called Madison Strategies, and it's a resource that's funded here in Tulsa, and the George Kaiser Foundation has that, and they offer free kind of services. The unemployment service, the employment service, I should call it the employment service. They offer some assistance, but not like they used to. There's a place called OJT, on the job training, where they have weekly meetings where people can get together. One of the things you need to do is get out, get among the people right away. Do not hibernate. Do not sit down and get depressed and discouraged. Really, the thing that I would say, going back to your original question, is tell them not to get in too big a hurry. Let's sit back. Let's recognize that this is only temporary, that, that I don't want to burn any bridges where I've been, that I want to look forward, and that my next full-time job for the time being is my full-time job, is to find a job. And there are some resources. You can go to some of my websites, other websites, and get some resources to help you. Realize that people want to help you. People want to help you to be successful. I mean, do you know anybody that's unemployed that you wouldn't want to help? Obviously, you'd help anybody, wouldn't you, Brad? And that's what this site is all about, and then really realize that you can improve the situation daily by going through that process. When you talk to your family, talk to them and say, hey, I've been released. I have the opportunity to take my skills and take them somewhere else, and help them to be really positive about it. You may get a little bit down for a short while, but jump out of it and get back in to say, hey, I'm in the job search mode, and I'm going to find something that's a great opportunity for myself and my next employer. And invest in yourself. It's really good to invest in yourself and say, hey, I'm going to invest in myself, learning how to do job search better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you say that. I mean, it is easy to assume that there's you have this social stigma, and you assume that when you're walking around, everyone knows that you are now this, almost as if you have a scarlet letter on your chest of, unemployed. You're at Lowe's in the middle of a day and you're not a contractor or whatever. You're doing things that you don't normally do, and you assume that people are judging you and that you're somehow less than and all of these things. And every time I get on LinkedIn now because I'm doing this, it's part of my algorithm, so I see it more. But every time I see somebody on LinkedIn, you can just read the hurtness and the almost desperation in a lot of them, and it hurts my heart every time I see it, because I know that they're going through and trying so desperately to find something else, whether it's out of necessity, financially or otherwise, or just for their own psyche, and it's just not working. So it hurts my heart. And that's why I felt like this is something that I could do. I've done podcasts in the past, and this was just something that felt more like a calling than something that I thought of immediately. I was actually listening to a different podcast a couple months ago, and there was a life coach named, I wrote it down, Jason Jaggard, from a company called Novus Global out of Florida. And I really, he was talking to that podcast about a lot of different things, but one thing that really stuck out to me that immediately hit me, because it was right after I got let go this last time, was he got to talking about taking stock of where you could have contributed to the situation that you're in, and taking some ownership in the entire situation, instead of having well, they did this to me, almost a woe is me situation. And that's true. They did lay you off, and you may have been an amazing employee and done everything right, and then they just let you go anyway. But really starting to take some ownership of where you could have been better, to try to help you move forward in your next search and things like that. And just to give a quick example, and then I'll ask you your thoughts on it, is when I look at my situation now. So as of March of 2024, I was working at a place that I enjoyed. It was a tough situation, but it was fun work. I was working for city and state governments. It was exciting. There was a lot of cool projects that we did with the city of Chicago specifically. And I got referred and subsequently recruited to another company that was here locally in Oklahoma City. And I really liked their culture. I liked the way they were approaching the employees. I liked the work. It was in oil and gas, and I had originally started in oil and gas and was kind of excited to get back into that. And so when it finally came together and they made an offer, and I jumped at it because I was really excited to go into it. But it was an industry I hadn't been in probably 10 years. And I was pretty specialized when I was in it. And so when I really take stock of ownership, you know, I made the decision to leave the previous company. I made it not on a whim. I didn't make it because I was upset. I didn't make it because of anything like that. But I did make the decision to leave a company that I could very well be at to this day. And I went to a company that I thought was amazing, and I still think that they're great to this day. But ultimately, it didn't work out. And if I look at the fact that I was 10 years removed from that industry, I was having to learn as I went. It was a consulting company where I needed to have more knowledge probably than I did. If I look at it that way and I take some ownership of where I contributed to what I could have done better in this situation, now I'm not looking at them and telling people, well, they did this to me. They let me go suddenly. I wasn't expecting this. It was, you know, I now can say, okay, I see where I can improve to potentially not have this in the future. You know, looking at where I'm going, understanding if I really am the right fit for this company, those type of things. So do you have any thoughts on kind of this ownership piece and people really taking stock and not blaming themselves? That's not what I'm saying. I don't want somebody to be like, oh, well, I really wasn't very good or whatever. And that may be true, but that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just kind of looking at maybe I could have learned something differently, or maybe I can learn it now so that I'm better in the future or something like that. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that we really many times make decisions that we wish we hadn't later, or we realized that probably wasn't the best. But that's life.
Mm-hmm.
We make those decisions because that there is a golden parachute, a golden opportunity out there that just might work for us. So I would say that when you look for a company and you have any concerns at all, that this is a little bit beyond me, is in the interview process, tell me a little bit about your onboarding process. Tell me about if I needed some support in this area to get up, what are the resources that you provide for me? Who are the people? Do you have anyone that's worked for you that's came into a similar situation to mine that would be able to share some of the ropes that would help me to be able to catch on something if I'm not aware of it? And ask them up front. And what you're saying by that, Brad, you're telling them that I'm a learner and I'm a contributor. You know, I may not know everything, and it doesn't make any difference whether you knew it all or not before you started. It's that you're willing to go in and say, hey, I really want to make sure that I give you all the value that you see in me right now. What are some things that I can count on from you to help me to be able to do that? And so as you look back on that, you say, I wish I'd have done certain things differently. The same is always true when you get released. When you get released, it's good for you to go back and look at everything you've ever done in every job you've had as far as you can go back. what are the things that I really made a difference in? What is the situation I faced, the action I took, and the result? Can you put down a problem, action, result? Can you put down something where here's something that I knew nothing when I went to work at this company? I really didn't understand it, but here's what we did. Here's the things we did, and here was the result. And be able to put a dollar, a number, a percentage, put something to it, and go back and where I got this idea from. There was an executive got released, and he got really depressed in his job search. And his coach said to him, I want you to sit down and think of everything you've ever done that you really made a difference in, all the way back to high school. And this guy was in his 50s, all right? Mm-hmm. So he went back thinking everything he'd ever done, sacking groceries or whatever it was, working as this or that, and writing down, what did I do that I really made a difference in? Because that is a part of who you are, Bradley. If you begin to start writing those things down and say, here's a situation I faced, here's the action I took, and here was the result, it helps you to begin to work that way in the future. It also helps you to go back and look, how could I have done it differently in the past? Because you're looking back, what did I do wrong there? And so get in the habit of thinking in terms of problem, action, result. Wherever you've been, situation, new situation, what's the action you took? What was the result? Old situation that needed some new that goes into it. What did we do differently? And what was the result? And if you could put a dollar number or percent to it, or just an increase, decrease, what you're saying is that I'm the kind of employee that's going to make a difference in the workplace. I can't do it on alone, but I will make a difference. I'm looking forward to being a contributor in your company, and learn to use those words. I'm a contributor and I am a learner, a continual learner and a contributor. Some of the words that people that are in the workforce need to remember when someone asks them a little bit about themselves. Does that help? Does that answer that?
For sure. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And it's one of those things where, my wife jokingly tells me that she really actually kind of respects me more when I've gone through these kind of things like this. Unfortunately, I've been laid off multiple times now, which helps this time because I've been through it before. I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But when I look back on the very first time, I had to really analyze where I was in a career at all, because I was in a situation at that point where I had some experience in a few different things, but I didn't have very much experience in anything. Like I had maybe 2 or 3 years of one thing, a couple years in another thing. And so looking for something that wasn't entry level was difficult because I was in a tough spot and everybody's looking for experience and all of that, which is a totally different conversation as far as, the patented 5 years experience and all that stuff. But I had to look at it, and I had to look at, was there a certification I could get? Because I wasn't attractive in what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do project management, but I didn't have a lot of experience in it. And I had to look into getting a certification because I needed something behind me to say, hey, I know what I'm doing. Even though my experience years are small, I know what I'm doing, and here's proof that I've went through all these classes to learn it. And so I had to go out and get a PMP. And my wife jokingly says to me that she really respects that because I didn't just sit around. I really tried to look and when you look at this time, I really tried to analyze where am I in my career? What is my passion? Do I feel like I have a purpose that I'm not tapping into, that I know that I can be of some assistance, whether as big or small as it can be, but it's something that I would enjoy. And that is actually what brought this podcast around. Was I had a passion for people. I've always cared for people. Even when I was a PM, I was good at the technical stuff, but I really was a empathetic team leader. I really cared for the project team. I really cared for the clients I was dealing with. I took a lot of time to understand them and who they were and all of these things. And then I had the ability, because I had done it before, to have a podcast. I had done one for 8 years, and I knew how it worked. So I thought, well, it's something that I can do, and maybe this can help some people. And so that's kind of what came about with this. And I don't know if this is my career, but it's something that gets me up every morning. And so that evaluation is really, really important.
Bradley, you know what? You've got a great wife. And a big part of going through transition is getting your family on board with you. And I had a lady come through that was so angry one time coming through our program. She said, if my husband had his way, he'd go beat those people up at work. You know, and very angry. And she was angry. And I said to her, I said, you've got to stop that. You've got to stop that, because you have been blessed with 20 years of your company. They paid you really well. They taught you a lot. I said, you need to rethink your dialogue that you say to your family and everybody else. Your husband hates that company. That company paid you really well. I know they did for 20 years. She came back to the office the next day and she says, I realized my gift to my family when I have lost my job is my attitude. And she came back and she changed the whole dialogue. And that's part of what I think is real important for us to talk about today, is learn to have a statement about your situation. And so she came back in, she said, I work for a fantastic company, one of the best companies in Tulsa for over 20 years. I learned a lot. I contribute a lot. I was able to be involved in so many people's lives. Let's talk about what you need. I'm looking forward to my next opportunity. And that transition is so important. You don't bring up the fact that, hey, I got let go after 20 years. And, I found out when it came up on a board in a conference room when my name was out of the org chart anymore. And she's so angry. This lady changed her whole attitude. And I think that's one thing, when your wife hears you, your husband hears you, that you feel blessed to have had this experience, that I learned a lot, I contributed a lot. Then go back through and just exactly what you're talking about. Write down the things that you learned, the things that make you valuable to the marketplace, the skills that you learned. Everywhere you've been, you've learned something that makes you valuable to the marketplace. When you speak that way, you're going to work that way in the future too. By the way, I love the fact that you took that project management. I think that ought to be required of everybody, to take a class in project management, because that's what work is all about. It's about projects every day. And that ought to be standard procedure for kids going into college, to learn project management, because everything we do is a project. How about when you clean the house? What about when you remodel your house, or fix your yard up, or when you go and get your car cleaned up? That's a project, isn't it? And when you understand project management, it affects everything. And so the skills that you bring to the table as a project management professional is that you think differently. You think about, how do we do this more effectively? How can we, and when you're talking, it comes through your conversation. And then you can talk about results. Here's such situation. Here's the action we took. Here was the result. And it reduced, it cut overtime. It cut, expenses. It cut the loss of product, and those kind of things. As you begin to start thinking like that, that's what companies are looking for today. So as an employee that's in the marketplace, you need to think about what it is that people are looking for when they hire somebody, and that becomes your dialogue. If it's about poor me, they're not even going to be looking at your website and your podcast. They're going to be thinking, oh, poor me. The people are looking at this job seeker journey that you're doing, this podcast, are people that want to learn something so that they can make a difference in the workplace for the rest of their life. I think people go through our program many times, Brad, they are better employees than they've ever been in the past, because we want them to think differently, that I am a learner and I am a contributor, and that comes out of their mouth every time. When you're on an elevator, and the elevator in my building takes to get to the fourth floor. It takes a matter of 20 seconds or less. I work for a fantastic company. I worked there for 20 years. I learned so many things that makes me valuable to the marketplace. I was able to contribute. I had great success. What do you do and how can I help you? 20 seconds. And somebody's going to talk to you, you know? And so being job loss, there is life after release. When I said at the very beginning, think about it. Hey, I'm on my road to somewhere great. And I'm going to make a difference because I'm a learner and a contributor. So if you can teach your people that listen to your podcast, Brad, what are the things they need to say? I'm a learner and a contributor. Let's talk about what you need and see if something that I've done will fit what you're looking for. Let's see if we can make it work. If not, maybe you know someone else I can go talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. We live in such a fortunate time. I mean, there's so many things that you can do now. There's all kinds of different avenues that people can take, things they probably don't even know that they know how to do, or that it even is a job. You know, I used to love watching different shows like, you know, even Dirty Jobs or something like that. And you find out about all these jobs you don't even know exist that are out there. And how many times have you met somebody and they go, this is what I do. And you go, that's even a thing? Who knew that was even a thing? And so we live in a fortunate time. If you choose to look for it, there's all kinds of things that you can do. But I want to respect your time. I know we're a little bit over, but what are some resources that maybe a person can tap into that maybe they haven't thought of as they're scrambling around trying to get their thoughts together after being let go? Do you know of any resources that maybe can help them begin their journey that maybe they haven't thought of yet?
Yes. Hey, there's a really great one. I'm glad you asked that, Brad. It's called onet.gov, or you can do it to My Next Career, mynextmove.gov. And it's a government-sponsored website. And if you go to that one that says My Next Career Move or mynextmove.org, it will give you an assessment there. You can take the assessment. It's going to ask you some crazy questions. It'll give you a list of jobs that are closest to your skill set and closest to your interest. You can look at, they'll give you at least 50 of them. You take that 50, you figure out 4 or 5 of them that you really think might be a fit, and go in and research them. Before you go chasing jobs, you know, go in and look at those. What does this job entail? What does it require? Since it's a government website, it will also tell you what the salary ranges are. It'll tell you what the expectation is. Is it going to be an opportunity to advance, or is it going to stay level? It's going to tell you what some of the requirements are. And it'll even have a link that you can go and see what are the jobs out there in the marketplace that are offering these right now. And so once you learn that, go in, rather than apply right away, go in and set a career alert up on your Indeed.com for those particular jobs in your marketplace, and let them come into your e-box so that you're getting an email on all the job openings, and take a look at all of them. Once you take a look at all of them, you see, is there any of those jobs that come in for companies that I might know somebody in my circle of influence that works there? I can call them up. Hey, Brad, what can you tell me about your last employer? What can you tell me that would help me if I were to apply there? Who should I talk to? What are their goals? What are their visions? Do they live it? Is it a good company to work for? Do your research before you ever apply. That's the most important thing you can do. Have them slow down, do their research, get prepared. But look at the things that website will help you to look at, and you can double check that for me when it's on the site. But you can go in and look at those kind of things and say it may open your eyes to something you've never ever thought about before. And you go outside there. My last thing I would say is, and I'll get a little spiritual on you if that's all right.
That's okay.
There's an awesome verse in the Bible, Colossians 3:23. It says, whatsoever you do wholeheartedly as unto the Lord and not unto man only. So whatever you do it well. Do it wholeheartedly as if you're doing it for God. And it changes our thinking. When we are doing something, we're going to do it well in everything we do, because we want to be excellent. And just do it wholeheartedly. Put your whole heart into job search. Look at it as an opportunity to learn something, to grow, to make yourself better, to make your environment that you're in, your current environment, better, and to help other people. People need this help. I think it's lacking in the marketplace.
Well, Travis, thank you so much for, reaching out to me. You saw me post something. It wasn't even about the podcast. It was about just, at the time, my wife and I were both in this situation of going to be looking for a job, and you reached out to me on your own. And you remembered, ironically, that I had done a podcast in the past, and you asked me about it. And that's when I told you, I said, that's ironic you asked me, because I was thinking about doing this. And so that kind of got our conversation going. But thank you for your time and for what you do for people. It's definitely needed. And if someone wanted to reach out to you, is there a way that they could find you or your company to potentially look into some of your services?
Sure. Our company name is Career Development Partners. We're located in Tulsa, but we are part of a global organization. We have offices all over the United States, and I'm a partnership with those companies. So Career Development Partners, and if they just go to our website, they can find me on there. There's resources on there, and if I can help them, just my email is real simple. It's on the website, but it's travis@cdpartnersinc.com. Just have them send me an email. I'll be glad to chat with anybody that gives me a shout out. And hey, Brad, I've always appreciated you. For the first time I met you, I was there the day you got released. And I really appreciate the fact that you came out the way you did, and you stood out to me as somebody that wants to make a difference in the workplace and wants to be a learner and wants to be a contributor and wanted to do something significant with your life. And so you impressed me the first time I met you, and that's why I remember you. And so good luck to you on your job seeker journey. And if I can be on again sometime and share some thoughts with you, I'm more than glad to do that. And really appreciate what you did, because I think there's a real need for what you're doing. So thank you so much today for inviting me to join you.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis. You got an open invitation. So we'll definitely talk again soon.
Great. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Travis.
Bye now.
That'll do it for this episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. I want to thank Travis Jones for not only being a guest, but for reaching out to me when he saw me post that I was going through another job search journey, and being not only willing to help me with that, but also being willing to be a guest on here. If you or someone you know is going through a job search and this is beneficial for you, there's a couple things I'm going to ask you to do. One, I'm going to ask you to share it with anyone that you know that is going through this difficult journey of finding their next job opportunity. If you know of a topic that I maybe aren't thinking of and you want me to try to cover, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on the jobseekersjourney.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. I'm not hard to find. And I would be honored to have you as a guest if you're an expert. But I would just want to be a part of a community. If you like this and you want to have this get in front of more people, there's a couple things you can do. One, I ask you to rate and review this podcast. Why? Because that helps get it out in front of more people. If you're on YouTube and you're watching the video, please hit the subscribe button again to get it in front of more people. I want this to be a community where we all share information so that we can help make this difficult journey just a little bit easier, because you're not alone. But for all of us here at the Job Seeker's Journey, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.